Okay, let's talk about some good reasons to play the ball more back in our stance. So first off, just for reference, what would be a normal ball position? A normal ball position for most of us would be if this green stick represents the middle of my feet right here, getting that ball position a good 2 or 3 inches forward in our stance, or in other words, if we had no tilt and we got our hips and our head centered, getting that ball off of our lead left ear over here, again, about 2, 3 inches forward of the middle of our stance, would be pretty normal for most people when they're hitting a wedge or a short iron or an iron or a wood. Now, a driver might get more forward because we heat up higher and we're trying to hit more up on it, but getting that ball slightly forward in our stance, and it could be a little bit less, a little bit more, depending on everybody's needs. There's not a universal ball position, but that would be a good starting place. Now, from there, the more we put the ball back in our stance, what can that cause us to do? Well, the first thing we can do is we can put that ball more back in our stance because we're trying to hit the ball lower. If we put the ball more back in our stance over here, we can have more shaft lean, which means if I'm taking the 7-iron, more shaft lean turns the 7-iron into a 6-iron, a 5-iron, a 4-iron, because we're de-lofting the club in this direction. So that's going to make the ball go lower. Also, when it's more back in my stance, I can hit a lot more down on the golf ball, which also brings the flight lower as well. So hitting a lower ball flight is a really good reason to put the ball back in our stance. The other reasons it's good to put the ball back in our stance is because we're trying to hit more of a draw or we're trying to hit more of a push. So let me explain those things. First, all things being equal, the more we put this ball back in our stance, it's much easier to hold the club face open when we make contact with it. Just like when we put the ball forward, there's more time for this club to release, and it's easier to hit a pull when the ball is more forward in our stance. It also encourages us to swing more from the inside when the ball is back in our stance versus when the ball is forward. It encourages us to swing more to the left. So all those reasons are going to shove the face more open when the ball is back in our stance. So if we're trying to hit more of a draw, well, that's a very helpful thing, because if we're going to hit a draw, where do we want this club face to aim? We want it to aim a little bit right of the target or a little bit open, because we need room for that ball to start to the right and then curve back to the target. So putting it back in our stance naturally helps hold the face a little bit open so the ball can start more to the right. And on top of that, it also helps us swing more from in to out. It helps us get our path more in to out by itself, but also hitting more down on the ball with our angle of attack. A downward angle of attack, aka hitting more down on it, also pushes our path more right, making it easier to hit a push draw. So if you want to hit more of a draw, putting the ball back in our stance is a very good thing to do, because it helps us swing more from the inside. It helps us hit more down on it. It helps push the face more open so the ball has room to start to the right. And also when we hit a draw, very easy to hit a lot of fat shots because we're swinging more from underplane over here. But if we put that ball back in our stance, well, we help eliminate those fat shots because we're moving the ball in a correct position for our low point. So across the board, if we're going to be more of a drawer, playing that ball more back in our stance is the way to do it. The other reason to play the ball more back in our stance is because we're trying to hit more of a push. Well, instead of thinking of push, think more of trying to get that ball in line with our target, and we're offsetting with our body. Here's what I mean. If you look at players hit something like a knockdown shot, or they're trying to hit a punch shot out of trees, they're going to put that ball more back in their stance, but they don't normally hit giant pushes away from themselves, or they don't hit giant hooks. What they'll do is they'll start aiming their body open in this direction, and then that push is in line with their target over here. They do that because, as we talked about with hitting a draw, what is putting the ball back in our stance do when we're trying to hit a draw? It holds the face more open, and it gets our path swinging more in to out to the right in this direction. Well, if I aim my body more left, what do I get to do now? Instead of pushing it to the right and hitting a draw, by aiming more left, my push is no longer to the right. My push is now in line with the target in this direction. So it helps me push the ball in line instead of hitting a push draw if I aim square to the target. The other thing it does is if I aim more open with my body, I have more freedom because I'm already aimed there with my body to swing more to the left. Well, if putting the ball back in my stance makes me swing to the right and aiming to the left makes me swing to the left, the two can offset each other. So now I'm swinging more in line with the target, which means my ball can start on line and it can stay on line. In other words, I'm aiming open with my body so I can hit a push towards the target. Again, because I'm trying to hit more of a knockdown or trying to hit more of a low ball flight. So the three really good reasons to put the ball back in your stance is because we're trying to hit a lower ball flight, we're trying to hit something like a knockdown or a punch shot, aka we're trying to hit it very low, or we're trying to hit more of a draw. So if you have any of those things going on, play that ball more back in your stance. And again, if you're trying to hit the lower ball flight, you're trying to hit the knockdown, you're trying to hit the punch shot, aim your body a little bit more open so you can push your ball on target line And if you're trying to hit more of a draw, well, then you can keep your body square, or you can even aim a little bit more to the right, and that will help you hit that push draw back to your target.